My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
And I'm Robert. In every episode, we're bringing you faith stories and fishing memories from some amazing members of the fishing community.
So join us as we shed a positive light on all things faith and fishing. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we have most likely a shorter episode today. It's going to be a fun one though. But Robert, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're in the middle of another week, so kids baseball and softball is still going on, but this is the last week of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that finish up and being able to have some afternoons back. It's super fun watching them play. I wouldn't miss it for the world. But when the end of that school ball season comes around, I kind of get a little 2 clicks of my heels up in the air. That may be a little bad to say, but it just takes so much time. Like I said, I wouldn't be anywhere else. I love watching it. But I have let a lot of other things in my household duties and the grass is high, the cars need to be worked on, just let a lot of other things go so we can watch sports and work and do what we do. So glad to see that coming to an end. And that's really it for now. What about you?
I hear you. Yeah, it's been a bit of a past few days for us. We've had some stomach issues with the little one at night. He does fine during the day, and it was Saturday night and last night. Saturday night and Tuesday night, and man, he just eats too much. Because so yesterday at dinner he ate a whole mango.
Dang.
And threw it all up. Woke up in the middle of the night. So if you're watching this on YouTube and just see me throw my headphones off and bolt, that's what's going on. So yeah, we've got that going on. We've had a few other things going on with work and other stuff. So just your regular stuff. Hadn't been able to fish since I got back from Tennessee. Still need to get over to Outhouse Tackle and drop a reel off with them, because Jerry over there does reel cleaning and reel repairs, and the brakes failed in my Daiwa Tatula 150. So I'm starting to wonder, because my Daiwa Tatula SV, which is my most expensive reel, the one that I really, really liked, it's already needing to be cleaned, and I've only had it for 6 months. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe a switch away from Daiwa is coming soon. All you Shimano fanboys, don't get too excited, because it won't be Shimano. I can promise you that.
I like Shimanos.
I'm happy for you, man. I have never held a Shimano and thought, man, this is worth that price tag. I think they ask too much for what it is, and I had a bad experience with a Corrado, and just I didn't look back. But
yeah, you're more on the higher end of them than myself. Like I'll pay for a SLX, and we used to fish with the old Abu Garcia red. I still have them sitting over there with the pistol grips. And if you fish with those long enough, you can fish with anything. And I still do backlash them sometimes, but I'll pull out those old Abu Garcias and throw them out in the front lawn some, just to remember like what it really is to have some stuff backlash. So
for sure.
I haven't gone to that higher level, of the digital reels, but I love those SLXs. I mean, I can cast them a mile. They do backlash every once in a while, but it's not a huge problem though. I like them.
If I were to try Shimano again, I think the SLX would be where I start, because I just hear so many good things about it, and it being at that price point,
it's a workhorse.
That may be better. But you were talking about Abu Garcia. I tell you, in my opinion, the best under $100 reel, under $100, and I don't say that a $999 reel is under $100, because a penny does not count. But the Abu Garcia Pro Max, I don't know if they still make it or not, but that reel was the reel that I learned on, because I tried learning on a Black Max and couldn't, and then bumped up that extra $20 to the $60 Black Max or Pro Max. And that was a workhorse. I don't have any of mine anymore, but I ended up selling all of mine. But they only came in 7 1-to-1, and but they were right at that $60 range, and they were fantastic reels. They had the micro click adjustment for the tension knob. And to me, like moving up from the Black Max, that was like the pinnacle of fanciness, being able to hear that click. So, that was a solid reel. That, I mean, they lasted. I never had any problems with them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I still, my son's has I don't spend a whole lot on his. He likes to go sometimes, but and I like for him to have his own stuff, because I don't. I need all 8 to 10 rods that I'm carrying. I need all those for security more than anything. But he's got some Black Maxes, and I'll tell you what, every once in a while, like I'll get ready to go and he'll have something tied on one of those that I want to use, and I'll just grab his and throw it in there, because I'm not really picky about my rods or reels. I can fish with whatever and just make some adjustments to it. But I swear, I like those Black Maxes. I mean, it does fine. I don't have any problems with it.
And going to it now, I probably wouldn't. But when I was first starting out, they did not get along with me.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about that level, like the Black Maxes, the Pro Maxes. There's nothing wrong with those. I mean, I think a lot, and I get caught up in it too. I mean, I'm sitting over in the, I do this in the garage, and I got my duck hunt and stuff back here, but both of my kayaks are to my left. I'm sitting here with 2 kayaks that I only use one at a time, but I wanted to pedal drive because, I wanted to go fish some Hobies and I didn't want to paddle. So I get caught up in some of the hype too. But I think the rods and the reels, some of it is about the hype. And I mean, that's why they put the stickers on the side of these, $100,000 bass boats, and you see these wrapped trucks with, whatever brands on them. It's all part of the marketing deal. And it's not just fishing. It's everything you see. I mean, if you're on social media and you're scrolling through stuff, you're seeing ads pop up for whatever you said last night that your phone listened to. That ad's going to pop up in your feed somewhere. And it's just all about the marketing to get us to think we need that higher dollar or that next level stuff. And don't get me wrong, as you move up the price points, do the reels and the rods get better? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And I do feel like, for me, the rods matter a little bit more to me than the reels do. I feel like I can deal with about any reel once I figure that particular reel out. But the rods and being able to feel, and I'm really just getting into that more so this year with some of the Element series from Cashion and their worm and jig rod. honestly, when I started using that, I'm like, holy crap, I've been missing out on, you can feel everything with that. And then you put a little tungsten in there, for your weight instead of lead, matched with a good rod. And I'm not going to say it's a game changer, but it'll change the way you fish. I mean, it changes the way you fish. It changes the way you feel the bottom, and it absolutely helps you. So don't think I'm sitting here saying that, as you move up, things don't get better. They do. But I feel like that we push people that are just starting out to think they need to go out and spend $4,000 on a kayak, and they need a $600 to $700 combo, and that's not at all it. I mean, start out with something that you can afford. Get a cheap kayak off marketplace. That's where I got that SS 127 from for like $900, and just added things to it as I went along. And the same thing with your rods and reels. I mean, I swear I'm sitting there looking at a spinning rod that's a Walmart Lose Xfinity, the bright orange rod. I will tell you right now, that rod and that reel has caught more fish than anything else I have sitting over there. It's nothing. It's like $50, but I like how short it is for the kayak. I use it a ton because I'm pretty accurate with it. And I think it's just what I got used to using. And, I've got some of the Cashion rods and spinning rods, and I love those things too. But I keep that wacky rig tied on that Lose Xfinity, and man, I find myself catching more fish with that setup. So I know I just went off on a tangent that we weren't really thinking we were getting into, but
hey, that's okay. We need to do a budget. We need to do a fishing on a budget episode.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, if you are fishing on a budget, Lose, Abu Garcia, 13 Fishing, all have some really, really good, like budget combos that will get you started. I mean, obviously, yes, if you go and you buy a $400 Zillion and a $250 Cashion Icon, you'll definitely notice the difference. But I mean, if you're starting out a Lose Mach 2 combo, I mean, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that rod and reel combo. I mean, I think even those now are up over $200, but I mean, but I mean, like you said, the Lose Xfinity, I mean, they've got some good budget stuff.
They got that, and there's another one that the Lose American Hero.
That's the one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, it's a nice. I mean, it's around, I think, $99 for the combo. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. But it is, as you move up, it does get nicer. It does help out, but you don't need that stuff starting out. Start out with a budget. Make sure it's something that you like to do, and move up from there, and get some good used gear. I know there's a lot of places you can get used gear off marketplace. There's even some dealers that deal in some pretty good used gear.
Yeah, I bought some nice used gear from Outhouse Tackle a couple years ago, and so I mean, always be on the lookout. But yeah, we'll definitely need to do a fishing on a budget episode soon. But let's take a quick break to thank some sponsors, and then let's dive into like the meat of this episode, which is going to be us kind of breaking down our 2023 bass fishing setups. So if you were wondering why are they talking so much about gear, that's why. We are ready. So let's take a couple sponsors and then let's get that started.
A huge selection and crazy fast shipping is already enough to turn heads as an online tackle shop, but Omnia Fishing sets themselves apart with their ambassador program. With Omnia, you can send in fishing reports for your local lakes that recommend baits, structure, tactics, and gear. And when another angler takes your advice and purchases something from your report, you get credit for it to spend at Omnia. The best part means that with Omnia Fishing, you can shop by lake and purchase baits and gear that are proven to work where you're fishing. To get started, go to omniafishing.com and use promo code FNF15 to save 15% on your first order.
Few things ruin your day on the water as bad as losing gear. But with the retrieval devices for fishing rods, action cams, bow fishing bows, and more from Save Your Outdoors, you don't have to let dropping your stuff ruin your day because you can get it back. The pressure-sensitive filter keeps water from rain and quick dips in the water out, but it lets water in when your gear goes overboard to release a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back. Go to SaveYourOutdoors.com to learn more and try some for yourself, and use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% on your order. That's SaveYourOutdoors.com and promo code FNFP15. All right, so Robert, how did you want to do this? Kind of go back and forth, and I don't know how many setups you've got.
Yeah, we can go back and forth if you want. And I'll be honest with you, I needed to look at some of my stuff. So some of it I don't even know. I mean, I know most of my rods and stuff. And then all my stuff is smashed around a little bit. So yeah, we can go back and forth and then figure it out.
All right. So let's start with our spinning gear. For me, that is 2 rods. So for Ned rigs, drop shots, and inline spinners, I have my Temple Fork Outfitters professional bass rod, which is a 7-foot spinning, it's medium light fast action. And this is going to be my only Temple Fork rod on the list, and it currently has a Fluger President 25X, I think is what they call it. It's a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. I had to look that up before I jumped on here because I never. That's the first time I've ever looked at gear ratios on a spinning rod, to be completely honest. Yeah. It's currently spooled with 20-pound braid from, I think it's Reaction Tackle. It's that fluorescent orange so that I can see the line move. And it has a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader on it. And that's really, ultra finesse, open hooks, Ned rigs, drop shots, and inline spinners, which is funny because that's not really a finesse thing, but that's a perfect rod for it.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, this is probably the rod that I use the least, but shocker. But I mean, like you said, it's definitely caught some fish.
Yeah, so I really probably fish my spinning gear as much or more than I do my bait casters, but I never grew up using spinning gear. We always use bait casters, and we would fish Texas rigs, and I mean I put it on a bait caster, Carolina rig on a bait caster, and that was the finesse stuff that we did growing up. Those were the 2 finesse tactics then. The shaky heads didn't exist. and the Senkos didn't exist, wacky rigs didn't exist. So even though I carry 2 spinning rods as well, and then I usually have 6 bait casters, I end up using those 2 spinning rods probably more than the 6 bait casters, but I do like to have those options available and not have to retie something if I want to throw something different. So kind of the same as you. I have the Cashion's kayak shaky head rod, and it has a Shimano reel, but I don't even know the name of the Shimano reel. I had a Shimano FX, which is like a $20 reel on it for a long time, and that worked fine. And then Andrew from Tackle Talk, I listen to him quite a bit, and it's just fun. It's fun to listen to. You get some good gear ideas. And so he was talking about the next reel up. I think it was like a $40 Shimano. I want to say maybe it was a Nexus, maybe the name of it.
Okay.
And so that's what I have on that deal now. And I usually run. I've been meaning to switch over to braid, but I'm running 8-pound fluoro on it. Just fluoro on the whole thing.
Okay.
I run some braid on my bait casters, and then with some leaders on there. And my top water, I just usually run just straight braid. But I hadn't switched over to the braid on the bait casters, and it's one thing I need to do this year. But it's one of those deals I just hadn't had time to do it.
Right.
So that's usually my shaky head, and I'll throw a Ned rig on that as well. My shaky heads, I usually try to go really light on. I don't throw a lot of heavy shaky heads. I usually don't throw those in deeper water. I usually throw either a Ned rig or I'll switch over to a bait caster and I'll drag a heavier jig, just because I really have gotten hooked on that worm and jig rod. And it's, you go through different stages of fishing. And so that's kind of what I'm enthralled with, that the feel that I get from that rod. So that's really it on that one. And then I'll do my other spinning rod, then we'll go back to you. And that's the other one that I was talking about, is just that Xfinity Lose. I bet I've probably had that combo 5 years, and it's the same thing. I run 8-pound fluoro the whole way on it, and I keep a wacky rig on it all the time. And that's the only thing that I ever throw on it, because I'll have it set into my side just as a follow-up. And then sometimes I'll you want to fish the wacky rig, and I fish it off the same thing instead of putting it on a different one. It's just that rod to me is a little shorter. If you want to skip it, it's that rod skips really good. And I figured out that with that wacky rig, if you skip that thing under some docks or under some low-hanging trees, I've had a lot of success with that. And for some reason, probably because I've had it so long, I can skip the best with that rod and reel. And, you don't have any of the sensitivity with it that you do with the Cashion rod, but I don't need it to fish a Senko, because you feel it when they bite it. Yeah, you're watching the line, and I don't need any feeling from that. So, it's a finesse thing, but I only fish that one setup off of it. So those are my 2 spinning rods that I keep. And I know you said you had another one. What was your other one?
So mine is actually also a Cashion kayak shaky head rod. So it is it's 7.2 medium heavy fast, which I didn't know how I felt about using a medium heavy spinning rod, but I mean, it absolutely makes sense for a shaky head rod to have that extra backbone. Because I mean, most of the time, whenever you're fishing a shaky head, or at least me, like I'm fishing in the thick of it. Like I'm dragging that through a fallen tree or something, and I need that extra backbone to get it out. I will also throw like the Jay's jigs, finesse jigs up there. So the skirted ones, like the cross-eyed cricket that I always talk about. That's actually the one that I caught my 16 and a quarter on Dale Hollow at, the biggest fish I caught. That wasn't a flathead catfish. I always throw, if I throw a wacky rig, I throw a weighted wacky rig. So I've started using that rod for that as well. And then like some of the smaller swim baits, it's a little heavy for that. I'm still learning this rod. I've only fished it a handful of times. But on that, I've got a Dobbins Maverick spinning reel. It's the 2500 size. It is also a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. Again, I looked it up before we started because I had no idea. But that is a decent spinning rod or spinning reel for sure. But to me, there's nothing in that reel that sets it apart enough to be double the cost of that President from Pfluger. So it was just one of those kind of impulse buys while I was at the tackle shop. And I was like, hey, that looks pretty cool. Let me see it. Oh, that's smooth kind of thing. But I mean, it's not much better than the Pfluger. So, I mean, I would go the Pfluger route, for spinning reels again, or a lose, a lose cheaper option.
Yeah.
Because to me, there's only so much technology you can put in a spinning rod or a spinning reel. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I mean, as long as the drag is somewhat smooth or as smooth, I mean, that's the main thing. And as long as the main thing for me with a spinning reel is if I stop and go to reel backwards, it doesn't have any play. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But on that, I've got 20 pound, that same orange braid. And I go to a 12 pound leader on that. If I'm going to be fishing a lot of laid down trees or something like that, I'll bump up to a 15 pound leader. But that's usually somewhere where I'm at. Sorry for the dogs. They, it sounds like they're running the fence with the dogs.
Yeah. No, it's so I think too, one thing that I've started figuring out and getting more into saltwater and really getting into some of the bigger spinning reels and rod setups that you need for the saltwater deal. It's been a month or so, but I was on a really big kick on trying to find, like a 5,000 size spinning rod and reel for surf fishing, because when we go down to the beach, I want to be able to just hand my younger son, here, take off, here's some bait that was some in the freezer, and here's a spinning rod, go to the beach and have at it. And in doing that too, I'm really looking forward to trying to troll for some Spanish mackerel, and there's some artificial reefs that are not far off the coast of North Carolina that you can get, they're a mile off the beach, and you can get your kayak there and you can kayak fish for some larger saltwater fish. So in doing that research, I found out, and this probably goes for freshwater reels as well, the whole price of the reel, I think if you are going pond fishing and you're never super hard on your gear, you can go with that lower end stuff and it's going to last you for a while. So I think the benefit of spending more money is the higher up the price range that you go, the seals are way better. The components are made Some on the lower end ones are going to have some plastic components in it, whereas you go up the price range, they're going to be all metal components inside the reel. Some of those reels are sealed, especially the saltwater ones, so you can dunk it in the salt water, and you're gonna be fine, because that reel is sealed up. But when you go and you buy on that lower end, like if you go buy like a 4,000 or 5,000 size pin combo for $89, and you go dunk it in the salt water 4 or 5 times, then it's not going to last you very long. So, for what we do, and we're mostly fishing fresh water with all these setups that we're talking about, and except for you rolling yours over the other day, normally we're not dunking our gear into the water. You are catching a little bit of rain every once in a while, but I don't think that's really, that's not, I would say some of it probably is going inside the reel, but it's not like dunking it in the water. So just keep that in mind while we're talking about this. Is we have these on kayaks, we're not dunking it in the water. That's the only reason I've had that Xfinity loose deal for 5 years. Otherwise, if I'd have dunked it in the water 5 or 6 times, it probably would be corroded inside and locked up, and it wouldn't be smooth, and I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't fish with it anymore. So that has a lot to do with the price range, just from what I found from, researching a lot of those saltwater reels, watching some YouTube guys on there that do it quite often, and there's a couple of great videos on there that'll say, he just breaks it down and says, hey man, this lasted me 2 months. Here was the problems with it. And he's got the reels in pieces. And then he's like, as he goes up the price, and then this is why I buy this $300 reel, because it lasted me 2 years of heavy use. And you're talking about somebody that's filming YouTube videos that's using it every other day. And so keep that in mind when you're searching for gear. If you're something you're going to use a lot, go ahead and spend the money on some higher end stuff. The value's there for the price you're paying for it, rather than having to replace a $90 combo, each year if you're saltwater fishing.
Yeah, for sure. Is that all of your spinning setup?
That's it. Yeah, I just run those two. I wear those out pretty good, but usually I got a shaky head tied on that shaky head rod, and I've got that wacky rig, and that's usually the only things that I'll throw. I'll throw a Ned rig, but I don't really like the open hooks. I get mad at changing and losing those things, and I never really have got into the Ned rig that much. Like I said, I'll throw them, but I end up losing more of them than catching fish on them. And I don't know, maybe I need to spend more time with it and learn some ways to adjust my fishing style to use that more. But that's really the only two things that I'll throw on those spinning rods, is the wacky setup and a shaky head.
Okay. Yeah. I, most of the time I don't even have that medium light with me. Usually it's just the one, and it's usually a shaky head. But yeah, and I will say, so I've got 8 setups here. Most of the time, tournament day, I typically will bring all of them just so that I've got it. But most of the time I've got 5 or less with me, and I just kind of mix and match depending on what lake I'm going to, or what creek or whatever. But before we jump into casting rods, let's say thank you to a couple more sponsors, and then we'll jump into it.
Sounds good.
If a fly rod is your weapon of choice, check out Atollas. Their Fly Caddy is the most convenient way to get your favorite flies to the water, or just keep them handy by clipping it to your hat, truck visor, backpack, rod case, or just whatever. You can also bundle it up with flies from independent fly tires that Atollas has teamed up with through their Fly Light project. Choose from bundles specializing in redfish, carp, saltwater, or freshwater. Head over to atollas.co, that's ATOLLAS.co, to get your Fly Caddy today, and use promo code faithnfish15 to save 15% on your order. That's faith the letter N, fish the number 15 at checkout for 15% off. If finesse fishing is your comfort zone, something you want to learn better this year, or just something you like to tie on as a Hail Mary pass, Jade's Jigs has everything you need and more, and it's all eco-friendly and lead-free. With an awesome selection of baits and colors, they've got a variety of techniques covered for you. Finesse jigs, underspins, Nico weights, Ned rigs, and more are all waiting for you at jadesjigs.com. And while you're there, use promo code FNF10 for 10% off your purchase. That's jadesjigs.com and promo code FNF10 for 10% off. All right, I think Robert has gone to look at his setups again to kind of remind himself of what he's got. But so I'll get this section started off, and so it's one that I've talked about before on here. I've talked with Robert about it, and that is the Cashion Kayak Chattergrass Rod. It's a 7'4" medium heavy fast action, and it is just it's a phenomenal bladed jig rod. It's dedicated for bladed jigs for me, and usually I have that one paired up with the Daiwa Tatula 150. It's a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio reel. Right now that one has no brakes, so I'm using a backup reel on that right now, which I think it's a Lose Carbon Fire. And I don't know if that's the one that's going to stay up there or not, but and so I use 15 pound fluoro on that setup, which I think it's the Seaguar Basics. Which if you're talking about on a budget, if you're on a budget and you want to use straight fluoro, Basics to me, Basics is better than Red Label, and it's $5 cheaper. So I don't know how Seaguar figured that one out, but to me, Basics is the way to go. And you notice I said bladed jigs and not chatterbaits, and that is because you can't sell chatterbaits if you're not Z-Man, and we use Mr. B Lure Company in my house, so because I mean that bladed jig is just so phenomenal. It hunts so well, Robert, are you ready for me, man?
Yep. Give me 1 second.
All right. So yeah, we've talked about it before that it's the Cashion Chattergrass rod. It's so sensitive that whenever a bass is tailing your bladed jig, you can feel the change in the vibration. I mean, whenever you're pulling it through grass, you don't have to. You don't have to pop the reel; it does it, or pop the rod; it does it for you. It comes through the grass beautifully. So yeah, that good old Chattergrass rod is the first on my list for the casting rods. What's your?
Yep. So look, I'll go with the same thing. I've got that the same rod. It's the Cashion CK. Chattergrass rod, and it's got one of the SLXs on it. And you notice that I've got a spinning bait tied on it, because not only do I use that for that bladed jigs, but I love to throw my spinner baits on these as well. It just gives you, I feel like, more feeling than anything that I've thrown a spinner bait on. You can feel the blades just like you can on a bladed jig. So I really gotten hooked on that setup for spinning my spinner baits too. So I've got Oh, no, that's not this. That's not what I was looking for. I've got two of these, so I usually keep one tied up with a spinnerbait and one tied up with a bladed jig. But yeah, I was over there grabbing some rods because I've got some mismatched stuff that that are oldie but goodies that I have kind of repurposed for some new style baits. And some of the reels that I have, and I'll show you one in a minute when we get to it. I've had that reel since I was a kid. It's an Abu Garcia. I don't even know. It may not even be before model numbers. I'm not real sure, but I can cast a mile with it and only use it for one specific thing. But we'll get to that, and I'll go to
what gear ratio are you throwing that spinnerbait on?
So I'm pretty sure that maybe a 7. It says 7.2 on there, so I'm guessing 7.2 to 1.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so. I think both of those SLX reels are the same, and this is the other one that I have. Oh no, this is a 8.2 to 1, and probably I should switch those reels, but I think I bought this. I think my wife got me this reel for Christmas, and I got this worm and jig rod around the same time. And so that's what I stuck it on, which I probably should flip those two since this is a faster reel, but that's just kind of how it went down. So I'm not real particular about what I fish with, but this is the one I was saying before is the Element worm and jig rod. It is 7.3 fast, medium, heavy. And I have absolutely fallen in love with this, for my Texas rig or jig fishing. It's just I can feel way more of this than I ever have. And if there's one thing that I've fished probably the most in my life, it would be a Texas rig. Usually I'll have that tied on. Most of the time I'll start I won't even put a soft plastic on it. I'll just have my hook and my weight on there, and then just kind of wait and see what I want to put on it. And then that'll change throughout the day, but I'll always have that Texas rig tied up. I love to flip with it up into brush. I'll throw it out in deeper water as well and let that thing work around the bottom in some deeper water. It's just one of the most versatile setups, I feel like. And just for me, just fishing as a kid, I mean, that's all we knew was the Texas rig. And, I learned a little bit later on about Carolina rig, but if we were bass fishing as a kid, we'd fish with a curly tail worm, Texas rig, and that's just, you were bass fishing if that's what you were doing.
For sure. So what size weight do you typically start off with on your Texas rig?
I usually, it's just according. If I'm flipping around brush and stuff, I really like lighter stuff. A lot of people will go heavier just to get down through the brush, and I understand that concept, but I always go a little lighter. So I'll usually start out with 3/8, but I'll go down to a quarter, bullet weight on there as well. I've got some super small bullet weights, just enough to get that down. And I think that's one thing for me fishing so much with Senkos is that rate of fall on the Senko. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not above putting a nail weight in the end of that thing and, speeding that up some too, and kind of almost power fishing some Senkos as well. But I do think a Senko that is not weighted, if you have the patience for it, will get you more bites. But it is a slow and painful way to bass fish for a whole day. And if I'm not catching fish, I usually won't have the patience to stick that out. I'll throw some other things in there, and then I'll go back to that until I run out of patience, and then I'll go to something else. But I think that's the reason on the Texas rig I usually use a little bit smaller weight, is because in my head, that slower rate of fall to me triggers more bites. Unless you're trying to get down in deeper water, and then you're going to have to go heavier to get there, or you'll be waiting for it to drop all day.
Okay. All right. So my next rod it has become my favorite setup. And it is a Cashion Icon 6.6 medium moderate fast cranking rod. And so whenever I went to that master class, I checked out their sale rack and found this guy. And the only thing that was wrong with it was on the little plaque that has all the specs on it. The corner was sticking out a little bit, and it was lower for that. So on that, depending on the time of year, this is my jerkbait rod. But it is also for like if I'm throwing like a square bill, shallow cranks, and whenever I'm on the creek or in a little creek or something, that 6.6 rod gives me the ability to make pinpoint casts and everything, and it has become my favorite. And right now it has my Daiwa Tatula SV. Which is a 6.3 to 1 gear ratio reel. And on my cranking setups, I have 15-pound P-line FluoroClear. It's a copolymer, so it's mono with a fluorocarbon coating. So it's got a little bit of stretch to it, but it's more clear than mono. It doesn't have as much stretch as mono, but it's not fluoro. And I really, really, really like that line. So, that is, that's my favorite rod, and reel setup right now.
Yeah. So so the next one that I've got is, my cranking rod, and that's going to be another, Cashion CK. It's just the kayak cranking rod, and it's a moderate fast, medium heavy. And I'm not really going over my line weights. I'm throwing fluoro on everything, and most of my setups I'll run the same thing. I'll run 12-pound fluoro, pretty much across the board until we get to the A-rig setup that's got some heavier line on it. And I've got another cranking rod sitting over there that I'll go over in a minute. But if I'm going to throw, like it's got a Fritz side on it right now, if I'm going to throw just a regular medium depth or a square bill, this is what I'm throwing it on. And I got this rod, and I didn't really have a reel, so I ran to Walmart. It's got a loose speed spool. Don't even know. It's just a black loose 7.5. No, that's not right. I just saw it on there a second ago. There it is. Yeah, no, that's right. 7.5 to 1. 7.5 to 1. So, but the same thing with all these Cashion rods. I mean, this cranking rod, you can feel everything with that too, and it's got the give to it. I know a lot of people say with these trebles that are on all of your crankbaits, you'll hear people say all the time that they hate treble hooks. They hate treble hooks because they lose a lot of fish on them. I don't think that way anymore, because I think this thing keeps them pinned where I don't really lose a lot of fish. I mean, I don't see me losing any more fish on this than any other rod or reel, and that's finesse. That's anything. Now I lose fish, don't get me wrong. I just don't lose any more on a treble than I do with anything else. So I'm sure that has to do with the way that rod is set up. But I've got more into cranking the last little bit as well. And that bill on that is cracked now that I'm sitting here looking at it.
Been banging it up against too many rocks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do lose fish on trebles, but I don't lose any more fish on my crankbaits than I do on my shaky head. I mean, technically, I guess I do, but that's just because I catch more fish on a crankbait than I do on a.
Yeah. You're talking about, per fish hooked.
Right. Percentage wise, it's
right. Percentage wise, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really even count like all bites that I don't catch as a fish that got off. Some of them you get a bite and you just never really get a good hook in them. I'm talking about ones that are hooked that I'm actively fighting that get off. I'm not losing a whole lot of that. Now you'll get a bite and not catch it, but I don't blame that on the trebles or the rod or whatever. And then I was talking about another cranking rod, and I'll go over this, then we'll go right back to you. But I needed a heavier rod to throw the deeper diving crankbaits. So this is a Proficiency. Let's see what it is. 7.6 heavy. And I just have one of my old Xfinity Lose Again reels on that, and I can cast this thing forever, and you can crank the crap out of it, and you can get that thing diving down there. And I also will use this and leave it out behind my kayak if I'm going spot to spot, if I'm fun fishing, and I'll just troll that behind my kayak as well. And I've caught a few fish that way. Just, I mean, you wouldn't be doing anything but riding anyway. So I'll throw that out and troll that. And this rod actually does a great job as a trolling rod. And it's about as stiff as you can get, but that's what you need to get these bigger cranking baits on down there, for me anyway. So that's a really super cheap Walmart setup that I love. It's a Walmart rod. I think it was $50 maybe. And then this reel I bought as a combo, but I ended up breaking that rod and then just stealing that old reel off of there and matching it with that. And it works good for that. So.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, sticking with the crankbait theme, I have a Cashion Element 7'3" medium heavy moderate fast cranking rod, and it loads up so nice on those hook sets. It's I use this for medium. I say anything from 2 to 15 feet, because I like to throw my rock crawlers on this. And rock crawlers, they say 9 to 14 feet, but I don't know how true that actually is. At least not with my 15-pound fluoro. Maybe if I were running 10 or 12, it would get closer to that. But I've got that paired with a Daiwa Tatula CT. That's their budget end of the Tatula reels. It's a 6.3-1, and it is that's a good setup, man. I mean, it'll the way that rod loads up whenever you're casting, you can bomb a crankbait out there. So.
Yeah, that's what you need on those bigger crankbaits too. I mean, the further you can get it and, really bear down on it and get it down to the depth you need and still keep it there enough time to keep it in a strike zone that you're going for. Because I feel like a lot of times if you don't get that out there, you're just getting to the depth you need as your line starts to get short and you're pulling it back up off the bottom, coming back up to you. So definitely key to get that whip action. So the next one I have is at least, I'm going to say 40-year-old reel. I'm not kidding you. It's a Abu Garcia Pro Plus. And I'm going to show you this jewel right here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And this is what I use it for. This the only thing I use it for is a rig, and I've got it on a cheap Vengeance Abu Garcia, and this rod is super heavy. It's a 7.6 heavy. And it doesn't even have the weight on there. A half to a 2 ounce lure is what it says on there.
Okay.
But this again is a reel, like I fished with this as a kid, and I have one more Abu reel that I've had since a kid, but it has given up the ghost and it doesn't cast very far anymore. But for some reason, I don't ever do anything to this reel. I can tell you that it's probably never been serviced in that 40 years. I'm not kidding you. And it's probably one of my furthest casting reels that I have. And I don't know, I don't even know if it has, what it has inside of it. I probably need to look it up and see. But, there's no reason to get rid of it. I've got a whole stack of fishing rods and reels over there that I probably just need to throw in the garbage. But, every once in a while you'll get one of these jewels that, you can still find a use for. And that A-rig setup is not something – I'm not going to go spend a bunch of money for something that I don't throw very much. But it is good to have, especially in the cooler months, good to have. And you just can't put an A-rig on anything you have. It's not going to work right. And so that's what I found works the best for me. So I know that's not all flashy Daiwa Tatula, but hey.
Hey, I'm starting to learn that the Daiwa Tatulas might have too many moving parts.
Yeah, that one probably has a one ball bearing setup. I'm not real sure, but it still works good.
That's awesome. Oh man. All right, so next I've got a Cashion Element, and that Element series for $129 has no business being as good as it is.
Yep.
I mean,
every one of them. Yep. There's some guys at work that have several of them. There's guys at work that have several of them, and they love all those. And that's one thing you touched on, but I'll touch on too. It's one thing about living close to Cashion is we can kind of sneak over there and find some deals on their showroom floor as well, because they'll have something that'll have a just the smallest imperfection in that, and they're not sending that out to the public. They're gonna put a little green dot on it, and they put it on their floor, and they'll even show you, hey, yeah, this is what's wrong with this rod. And so it is nice to get several of these rods came from that right off of their showroom floor, and that saves you some bucks too. So any of you guys that are in North Carolina, Monday through Friday, that's open down there. They're more than happy to show you those rods and reels and, show you how they're made as well along with it.
Absolutely. And another nice thing about being so close to them is that you can find Cashion Rods on Facebook Marketplace too, which you may not be able to do everywhere. So, but yeah, so this is a Cashion Element. It's a 7.1 medium heavy, moderate fast, and it's their multi-use rod from their Element series. And it has some sort of loose speed spool on it. It's a 6/8-1. And so my main thing that I use it for would be spinner baits and topwaters. Pretty much any topwater that's not a popper, I use this rod for. If I'm going to be throwing a buzz bait, I might switch it out with I've got an extra reel that's a 8.5-1. I may throw that on there just to keep it up a little bit better, but I also will throw, if I'm deciding to throw a really light Texas rig, But I also have started using it for like my DT16s and higher, because it's a stiffer rod than that cranking rod, but it's still that moderate fast, so it's still got a good parabolic bend to it. So that one I've got a 40 pound. I've got a 40 pound reaction tackle braid, and I go to I think a 15 pound basics fluorocarbon leader. And if I want to throw, a Chapo or a spook or something like that, I can cut that leader off and throw it on straight braid. And then if I want to switch over to spinner baits, I can just tie that leader right back on. So, yeah, and I like to throw most of my topwater stuff on either straight braid, or sometimes I'll depending on what it is, I'll throw it on that Fluoroclear.
Yeah. So my topwater setup that I use the most is just an Academy H2O frog rod. I picked that thing up 3 or 4 years ago. I do use it quite a bit. That's probably a rod setup that I need to upgrade to something that's a little more versatile than that. I end up throwing a Chapo or Whopper Plopper on that same frog rod, and I've had really good success on it, even though you would think that would be too stiff for those trebles on there. But I really have. There's one at Norman that I lost on it, but I caught a lot of fish that day, so losing one out of like 8, I was okay with that. But other than that, that's been a pretty workhorse of a setup, and that's only there's never the days that I'm not throwing that all day long. I do like to throw the Whopper Plopper. I do like to frog fish some, but that's not something that's getting used a ton. And if I'm going to throw a popper, I'll put it on that spinning rod that I throw my Senkos on, and I'll put my poppers and smaller top waters on that light spinning rod, because usually that's going to be just early in the morning or late in the day if I'm out that late. I do like to throw some poppers, especially on Harris. You really could used to wear them out on some poppers there. Not so much anymore, but I still catch some pretty good sized fish on the top water, just old school pop R. So, and that's really all of mine. What else you got left?
Well, I should throw out there that that Temple Fork, probably 80% of the fish I've caught on that particular setup were on a popper, and I didn't even put that on there. But so yeah, definitely a big fan of the popper. So I've got 2 left. I've got my Cashion Icon. It's a 7-foot medium heavy fast action worm and jig rod, and that is for my Texas rigs, Tokyo rigs, and jigs. And I've got that paired with my Lew's Tournament Pro Speed Spool. And what I've found is with Lew's, anytime you see Pro, that just means that it's the Bass Pro exclusive, and they've got an exact same reel that has a different color scheme,
right,
that they give to everybody else. But it's a 7.5 to 1. I've got it spooled with 15 pound. No, I keep this one spooled with 17 pound Sunline FC Sniper. And it is, that's probably of my reels. That's probably my favorite reel that I've got, is that Lew's Tournament Speed Spool. But yeah, you were talking about how the Element worm and jig rod was so super sensitive. This one is too. It's a little stiff for casting, a lot of the Texas rigs that I use because they are lighter than most. But anytime I move up to a heavier one, or if I'm throwing a jig or my Tokyo rigs, typically my Tokyo rigs are heavier than my Texas rigs, and I mean it loads up just fine on the cast. But I mean it's stiff enough that you can use it for flipping a little bit. But I've got a flipping rod that I have. I use it for flipping anytime there's grass. I use it for, I've used it for Carolina rig a little bit. And for now, it's my frogging rod. And it is a Cashion core 7-foot heavy fast action worm and jig rod. And it's got a Daiwa Tatula CT 8.1-1. And that's the one that it's got the white and black handles. So I actually picked it up thinking it was a Cashion kayak, but I definitely don't have any qualms against it. I don't use it as much because I don't typically throw a lot of heavier stuff. But I'll probably use it some this summer on Lake Raleigh in the grass. So
Cool.
Yeah, but that's about it. Here I am saying that this was going to be a shorter episode, and we're at
I knew it would take us longer to go through that than what we thought. But that's okay. But I thought I was going to have enough battery, but I'm down to like 3%, and I don't have a charger out here. So I just want to say one thing. So if I cut out, that's why.
Okay.
But am doing a tournament this weekend. By the time this airs, obviously it'll already be done. But for any of you guys that are saltwater guys, you can check out Reeling for Research. It's for UNC Children's Hospital. So me and some of my saltwater buddies, first week of May, we always do a little saltwater fishing. So it's your best 3, and you can do any combination, and it's tuna, mahi, or wahoo. So hoping to put a hurting on some of those this weekend. And yeah, going out of Moorhead. So any of you guys that boat fish and saltwater fish toward the Carolina coast, that's a fun tournament to get into for a good cause. So looking forward to that. And that's really all I got. What do you got this weekend?
This weekend I'm on call. So
there you go.
I don't have a lot going on. I'm on call and on daddy duty and all kinds of fun stuff. But yeah, let's thank a couple sponsors real quick, and then we'll pray and close it out.
Sounds good.
I can find my mouse.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on-the-water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check out shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality handcrafted lures and has been for 30 years, right here in the U.S. Using all-metal components, owner and gamakatsu hooks, and silicone or frog hair skirts, Mr. B is pumping out some awesome spinnerbaits, jigs, buzzbaits, underspins, and more, including some of the most unique bladed jigs on the market. To fill up your tackle box, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, and use promo code faithnfishnpod1x10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. That's faith the letter N, fish the letter N, P-O-D, so Faith and Fishing Pod, just like our Instagram handle, 1x10. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and pray for us and close us out. Robert's frozen. His phone may have died, but yeah, we'll go ahead and close it out in prayer. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for whoever it is that's listening to this right now. Pray that you touch their life and bless them in some way and help them know that that you are near and that you are still good and you are in control. God, thank you for this opportunity that we have to go chase after fish with a rod and reel and line and hook. And thank you for the opportunity that we have to be able to go out and fish for them regularly and with halfway decent gear. And thank you for all of those who are out there fishing and out there experiencing nature and experiencing you. And God, everyone who is struggling right now, whether it be with from sickness or family struggles or whatever it is they're going through, I pray that you wrap them in comfort and love and just put on a show in their life. God, we love you, and it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Hopefully you enjoyed getting a chance to just kind of talk shop with us and talk gear. And if you like this kind of episode, let us know. And that's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by Cam Steele and Robert Randolph and is sponsored by Savior Outdoors, Jay's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Mr. B Lure Company, Atollas, and Omnia Fishing. Don't forget to join the Facebook community, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe, rate, and review us on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.